The ropes cut deep into Catherine Winslow's wrists as Colonel Pierce's men dragged her toward the flagpole, her blood staining the parade ground crimson. "Where's your Superman now?" Pierce sneered, pressing his pistol against her temple. The crowd of Marines stood frozen helpless, watching their beloved art teacher about to be executed for treason she didn't commit. But Pierce had made one fatal mistake. He didn't know her husband was already watching through a sniper scope from 800 yards away, and Ghost Winslow never missed. Welcome to my story. Follow me to the end, and comment your city below so I can see how far this tale has traveled. The Pacific waves crashed against the jagged rocks below Camp Pendleton's coastal cliffs as Catherine Winslow knelt beside the bleeding Marine, her hands moving with practiced precision that belonged in a trauma ward, not on a morning beach walk. Blood seeped through Corporal Dixon's wetsuit, where the surfboard fin had torn through muscle and nicked an artery. "Don't move," Kate commanded, her voice carrying an authority that made the young Marine freeze despite his panic. "Look at me, not at the blood. At me." Her fingers found the pressure point, instantly stemming the arterial flow while she used her teeth to tear a strip from her sundress. The other surfers stood paralyzed, their phones out, but hands shaking too much to dial. "Someone call base medical," she ordered without looking up. "Tell them we have a severed tibial artery partial. They'll need O-negative ready." "Ma'am, how do you—" "Now." The transformation was instantaneous. The soft-spoken art teacher who taught their children watercolors had become someone else entirely, someone who'd seen blood before. Too much of it. Kate's hands worked in smooth, economical movements, creating a tourniquet from her dress fabric and a piece of driftwood. She monitored Dixon's pulse with 2 fingers on his carotid while maintaining pressure with her knee. "Stay with me, Corporal," she murmured, noting his rank from the tattoo on his shoulder. "Tell me about your deployment." "Of Afghanistan, ma'am. 3rd tour." His lips were turning blue. "Where?" "Helmand Province." "I know it well." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Dixon's eyes widened slightly, but shock was setting in. The base medical team arrived 7 minutes later, 7 minutes where Kate had kept Dixon from bleeding out with nothing but torn fabric and precise pressure. The lead medic, Staff Sergeant Hayes, took one look at her field dressing and whistled low. "Professional work, ma'am. Where'd you train?" "YouTube," Kate lied smoothly, stepping back as they loaded Dixon onto the stretcher. Blood covered her hands and what remained of her sundress. "Will he make it?" "Thanks to you, absolutely." Hayes paused, studying her face. "You sure we haven't met before, maybe at the base hospital?" "I teach finger painting to 5-year-olds. "Sergeant, not quite the same skill set." But Hayes's eyes lingered on the way she'd positioned her hands, textbook combat medicine, the kind they taught at Fort Sam Houston. The kind they refined in places where medevac was hours away, and every second meant life or death. Kate waited until the ambulance disappeared before walking to the water's edge, letting the Pacific wash the blood from her hands. Her fingers trembled now, not from fear, but from memory. Different blood, different beach, different life. Impressive work. She didn't flinch at Admiral Thompson's voice behind her. She'd heard his approach 3 steps ago, the slight drag in his left foot from an old injury, the particular rhythm of his breathing. "Admiral," she acknowledged without turning. "Just basic first aid." Basic first aid doesn't include knowing exactly where the tibial artery branches or how to create a functional tourniquet from a sundress. He moved to stand beside her, his shadow long in the morning sun. "Kate Winslow, you've been teaching at our base school for 3 years. Perfect attendance, beloved by every military family. Yet your background file is surprisingly thin. I'm a boring person, Admiral. Art degree from UC San Diego. Teaching certificate. Nothing exciting. Thompson's weathered face cracked a slight smile. My wife loves your classes, you know. Says you've helped more deployment-stressed kids than all our base counselors combined. Children need outlets. Art provides that. Indeed. He paused, watching a pelican dive for fish. I knew a Thomas Winslow once, Navy intelligence, one of the best operational planners I ever worked with. Died in Moscow 12 years ago. Officially a car accident. Unofficially, he let the sentence hang. Kate's expression remained perfectly neutral, but her pulse quickened. Common name. Not that common. He had a daughter, they say. Followed in his footsteps. CIA operative. Codename Nightingale. Disappeared after Moscow burned her entire network. Some say she died. Others say she vanished into a new life. Thompson's eyes never left the horizon. Hypothetically, if such a person existed, if she'd found peace teaching children painting sunsets living quietly, I'd make sure she stayed invisible. Professional courtesy to her father. Kate finally turned to face him. Their eyes met his, knowing hers carefully blank. Hypothetically, she said softly, such a person would be grateful. Good. Then we understand each other. Thompson started to leave, then paused. Colonel Pierce arrived yesterday. New base security chief. Ambitious man. The kind who looks for threats where none exist. Or creates them for career advancement. Watch yourself, Mrs. Winslow. As his footsteps faded, Kate's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Package arriving in 72 hours. Weather permitting. J. She deleted it immediately, but her heart raced. James. After 6 months of deep cover operations, her husband was coming home. Ghost was returning to Pendleton. The art classroom smelled of tempera paint and children's laughter when Kate arrived an hour later, having changed into one of her typical flowing skirts and cardigans, the uniform of a harmless teacher. 20 small faces looked up at her, their paintings of family members scattered across tables. Mrs. W., you're late. 6-year-old Emma Rodriguez announced her father deployed with the 1st Marine Division. Sorry, sweetheart. I had to help someone this morning. Were you being a hero? Tommy Chen asked, paint streaking his cheeks like war paint. No, honey. Just helping. Now, who wants to learn about mixing colors to paint the ocean? As the children worked, Kate moved between them, offering encouragement, fixing mistakes being exactly what she appeared to be. But her peripheral awareness never stopped. The new security camera installed above her door, not standard base equipment. The unmarked sedan that had driven past 3 times. The way Corporal Stevens usually assigned to gate duty, now stood within eyeline of her classroom. During lunch break, she locked her door and opened her laptop. To anyone watching, she was updating lesson plans. In reality, her fingers flew across hidden keystrokes, accessing an encrypted partition invisible to standard detection. Lines of code streamed past satellite imagery communication intercepts personnel files. Colonel Marcus Pierce, former Defense Intelligence Agency. 3 tours in Afghanistan. Suspected of selling operational intelligence, but never proven. Recently divorced. New assignment came with unusual authority, direct Pentagon oversight bypassing normal command structure. His wife, Veronica, was more interesting. Russian literature professor at UC San Diego. Parents emigrated from Belarus in 1987. Several trips to Moscow for academic conferences that coincided with FSB recruitment drives. Kate's fingers paused. This wasn't random. Pierce hadn't just arrived at Pendleton. He'd been sent here. For her. A knock interrupted her thoughts. She closed the laptop instantly, the encrypted partition vanishing. Come in? Veronica Pierce entered like she owned the room, designer heels clicking on linoleum, her smile sharp as winter. You must be Catherine. I've heard so much about you. Kate, please. And you are Veronica Pierce. My husband just took over base security. I thought I'd introduce myself to the important people. The pause was deliberate, dismissive. I teach finger painting, Mrs. Pierce. Hardly important. Oh, but you are. The woman who saved young Dixon this morning, everyone's talking about it. Veronica's eyes swept the classroom, cataloging everything. Such a humble space for such a hero. Children don't need much, just attention and care. How wonderful. I'm sure you provide that in abundance. Veronica picked up one of Emma's paintings, a soldier father holding hands with a little girl. Sweet, if a bit primitive. Perhaps the children could benefit from real art instruction. I do have a master's from Moscow University. 6-year-olds don't need technique, Mrs. Pierce. They need expression. Of course. You'd know best. After all, you've been here so long. 3 years, isn't it? All alone. My husband travels for work. How convenient. What does he do? Consulting. How delightfully vague. Veronica's smile turned predatory. We should have coffee sometime. Share stories. I'm sure you have so many interesting ones. After she left, Kate stood perfectly still for 30 seconds, then moved to the window. Veronica was already on her phone, speaking rapidly. Russian. Most wouldn't recognize it, but Kate heard the Muscovite accent clear as day. The children returned from lunch, loud and happy, unaware their teacher had just been probed by a potential FSB asset. Kate helped them with their paintings, praised their efforts, mediated their small disputes. Normal. Routine. Safe. But her mind was already running scenarios. Pierce's arrival. The surveillance. Veronica's probe. Someone had connected dots that should have stayed scattered. Someone knew Catherine Winslow was more than she seemed. That evening, Kate drove home to her cottage on the base's outer perimeter, a small, weathered place that looked like it belonged to a woman living on a teacher's salary. She parked, walked to her door, unlocked it. All normal. All routine. Then she stood in her entryway for exactly 4 seconds, reading the space. Someone had been here. Professional work, nothing obvious. But the dust pattern on her bookshelf was wrong. The angle of her coffee table had shifted 2 degrees. Her laptop closed, but not quite aligned with the desk edge as she'd left it. Kate moved through her house, methodically cataloging the intrusion. They'd been thorough, but not perfect. FSB tradecraft, with American technical overlay. Pierce and Veronica working together. In her bedroom, she knelt beside her bed and felt under the frame. Her fingers found the hidden switch. The floor beneath her dresser clicked softly. She moved it aside, revealing a hidden panel. The ladder descended into darkness. 10 feet down, motion sensors activated soft lighting. The space was small but efficient, monitors servers, communication equipment that belonged in a CIA station, not under a cottage. Kate activated the system's fingers flying across keyboards. She pulled up the base's security feeds first. Pierce had installed additional cameras, but his techs hadn't found her taps into the main system. She watched herself from 6 angles, seeing her cottage surrounded by subtle surveillance positions. Next, she accessed the communication intercepts. Her programs had been running silently for 3 years, monitoring all transmissions in and out of Pendleton. Pierce's were encrypted, but her system was already working on them. One partially decrypted message made her blood freeze. Nightingale located, confirming identity. Asset Vanguard requests immediate extraction protocols if verified. Vanguard. She knew that code name. A mole in the Pentagon identity unknown even to CIA. Someone who'd burned agents across 3 continents. Someone who'd ordered the Moscow operation that killed her father. Kate's fingers moved to her secure phone. 3 years of silence were about to end. Ghost, this is Nightingale. Cover compromised. Hostile actors on site. Request immediate support. The response came within seconds. 72 hours becomes 48. Stay gray. We'll bring the storm. J. She allowed herself one moment to close her eyes to feel the relief that James was coming. Then she got to work. If Pierce wanted to play games, she'd remind him why Nightingale had been CIA's most feared operative in Eastern Europe. Why even after Moscow burned her network, no one had ever found her. Because Catherine Winslow might be a quiet art teacher. But Nightingale was something else entirely. The next morning arrived with coastal fog thick as wool. Kate arrived early to her classroom, ostensibly to prepare materials for the day's lessons. In reality, she was installing micro-cameras in places Pierce's security sweep would never check inside paint bottles under desks in the spines of children's books. Sergeant Major Miller was waiting by her door, his weathered face unreadable. "Mrs. Winslow, a word." She unlocked her classroom, gesturing him inside. Miller had been at Pendleton for 15 years. If anyone had institutional memory, it was him. "Coffee," she offered, starting her small machine. "Black, if you please." He waited until she handed him the mug, then said quietly, "I knew your father." The words hung between them like a loaded weapon. "I don't know what you mean, Sergeant Major." "Cut the shit, Kate." His voice was gruff, but not unkind. "Thomas Winslow saved my ass in Beirut 98. I was young stupid, got myself captured. He didn't have to come for me. Wasn't his mission. But he did." Kate said nothing, her face carefully neutral. "He talked about you. His little girl. Said you had your mother's eyes but his instincts. Said you'd either become an artist or follow him into the shadows." Miller studied her. "Looks like you did both." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Pierce is asking questions. Wrong kinds of questions. About you, about anyone who's been here more than 2 years. He's building files." "That's his job." "No, it's not. Security chiefs protect the base. They don't investigate teachers without cause." Miller set down his mug. "Your father told me something once. Said if anything happened to him, if his family ever needed help, I should look for a nightingale singing in the wrong season." Kate's breath caught. "Well, Mrs. Winslow, it's October, and I swear I heard a nightingale last night." He moved to the door. "Pierce has a meeting tonight, 2200 hours, Building 7, the old comm center. Supposed to be condemned off limits. Might be worth knowing what he's up to." After he left, Kate stood perfectly still. Miller knowing her father wasn't in any file, which meant Thomas had run operations so black they didn't exist even in classified records. And if Miller knew to look for Nightingale... Her phone buzzed. A text from the base commander's office. Budget meeting, 1400 hours. Mandatory attendance. Colonel Pierce. The trap was being set. The budget meeting was held in the main administrative building's conference room. Kate arrived to find a dozen department heads already seated, but Pierce had positioned her chair directly across from his, a power play forcing her to meet his eyes throughout the meeting. Veronica sat beside him, taking notes she clearly didn't need. "Let's discuss resource allocation," Pierce began, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Some departments are overfunded for their actual contribution." His eyes locked on Kate. The children's art program, for instance, nearly 30,000 annually for what amounts to babysitting. "Those funds cover supplies for 200 military children," Kate responded evenly. "Children dealing with deployment stress PTSD by proxy emotional finger painting," Pierce interrupted. hardly essential to force readiness. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Hayes from Medical spoke up. "Mrs. Winslow's program has been credited with preventing numerous psychological interventions. The cost savings alone—" "Were those studies authorized?" Veronica interjected. "Formal assessments with proper methodology, or just feelings?" Kate felt the room shift. Others were uncomfortable, but unwilling to challenge the new security chief directly. "The results speak for themselves," Kate said quietly. Emma Rodriguez hadn't spoken for 2 months after her father deployed. She talks now. Tommy Chen was having night terrors. They've stopped. "Anecdotal." Pierce dismissed her with a wave. "I'm cutting the program budget by 60%. If you're as talented as everyone claims, you'll make do." "You're punishing children to make a point." The room went silent. Pierce's face darkened. "I'm allocating resources efficiently. Question my decisions again, and we'll discuss whether the base needs an art program at all." Kate nodded, letting him think he'd won. But she'd seen Veronica's smirk the way she'd made a note when Kate had shown emotion. They were cataloging her reactions, looking for pressure points. After the meeting, Kate returned to her classroom to find her supplies closet locked with a new padlock. A note was taped to it. "Pending budget review. Security." The children would arrive in an hour, expecting to paint. Kate looked at her locked supplies, then at her personal bag. She pulled out her wallet, counting cash. Enough for basic supplies if she drove to the civilian store off base. 40 minutes later, she was loading tempera paints and brushes into her car when she noticed the tail. Black SUV government plates maintaining perfect following distance. They wanted her to know she was being watched. Kate drove carefully back to base, the SUV never more than 3 cars behind. At the gate, the guards took longer than usual checking her ID, making her open her trunk, examining each bag of supplies. "Art supplies have to be cleared by security now," the young Marine said apologetically. "Colonel's orders?" "Of course." She made it back with 10 minutes to spare, finding parents already dropping off children. Several stopped to thank her for saving Dixon. Each time she deflected, minimized, played the humble teacher. But she noticed Pierce watching from his office window 3 buildings over. He had line of sight to her classroom. He was making this personal. During art time, as the children painted, Kate's phone vibrated with an encrypted message. "Asset movement confirmed. 2130 local. Persian intercept indicates package contains technical specifications. Recommend immediate intervention." Overwatch. Overwatch. A designation she hadn't used in 3 years. Someone from her old network was still active, still watching. She glanced at the children absorbed in their paintings. At 21:30, she was supposed to be at the base family movie night helping with concessions. Perfect alibi, while Pierce met with his contact. But if Persian code for Iranian intelligence was involved, this was bigger than just Pierce hunting her. "Mrs. W, is this good?" Emma held up her painting, a rainbow over a house, with stick figures holding hands. "It's perfect, sweetheart. My daddy would like it. He'll love it." Kate knelt beside her. "Should we make him another one? Something special." As Emma nodded enthusiastically, Kate's mind was already working. 21:30 gave her time to prepare. Time to remind everyone why Nightingale had survived when entire networks burned. That evening, Kate arrived at the base theater dressed in her usual casual teacher attire, jeans, a Pendleton Marine sweatshirt, hair in a ponytail. She helped set up the concession stand, chatting with other volunteers visible to everyone. At 21:15, she excused herself for a bathroom break. The bathroom window had been prepped years ago, loosened screws painted over to look secure. Kate had it open in seconds, slipping out into the darkness. She'd cached supplies in various locations around base for exactly this scenario. From a maintenance shed, she retrieved a black tactical suit, night vision equipment, and surveillance gear. Building 7 sat on the base's periphery, officially condemned after asbestos discovery. Unofficially, its isolated location and disabled security cameras made it perfect for meetings that shouldn't exist. Kate approached from the north, using the coastal fog as cover. Her equipment picked up 4 heat signatures inside Pierce 2 unknowns, and a 4th figure trying very hard to remain invisible in the rafters. Professional overwatch. This wasn't just a meeting. It was an operation. She climbed the exterior maintenance ladder, each movement silent despite the rust. The roof access door was locked, but her picks had it open in 12 seconds. Inside, voices drifted up through the ventilation shafts. "Confirmed identity isn't enough," Pierce was saying. "I need leverage, something that forces extraction." "Patience, Colonel." The accent was subtle, but distinct, educated Persian, likely Tehran University. "Your country wants Nightingale eliminated. My country wants her knowledge. Both require her isolated, vulnerable. She has protection. Admiral Thompson is one man. Arrange an incident, something that requires his attention elsewhere. Meanwhile, we proceed with the package." Kate repositioned, finding a sight line through damaged ceiling tiles. Pierce stood with a man in civilian clothes, Iranian intelligence, definitely. The second unknown was muscle-positioned by the door. The overwatch in the rafters was good professional, but focused on the entrance, not internal approaches. The Iranian produced a tablet showing Pierce something that made him smile. "Building 5's server room. She's been accessing it remotely, but she doesn't know we know. Tomorrow night we let her infiltrate, then close the trap. No escape, no witnesses, no body, if necessary. My superiors want her alive, and mine want her dead. Compromise we interrogate first, you get what you need, then an accident. Training exercise gone wrong. Happens all the time." Kate's blood went cold. Building 5 housed the base's backup communication servers. If they knew about her access, they'd been watching longer than she'd thought. She needed those servers to communicate securely with James to coordinate his arrival. It was definitely a trap, but one she might have to spring. The meeting continued for another 10 minutes, discussing logistics, backup plans, extraction routes. Kate recorded everything through her equipment, then began her withdrawal. She was halfway to the roof door when the overwatch shifted position. His new angle would spot her in 3 seconds. Kate reacted instinctively, throwing a small piece of debris across the room. The overwatch spun toward the sound, and she moved flowing like smoke through the shadows. She made the door just as he turned back, suspicious, but not alarmed. By 21:45, she was back through the bathroom window, having cached her gear. She returned to the concession stand, slightly out of breath, which she covered by claiming she'd had to run to stop some kids from sneaking into the R-rated showing. "Everything okay?" asked Patricia Hayes, one of the other volunteers. "Fine. Kids, you know." But her mind was racing. Tomorrow night was a trap, but also an opportunity. They thought they were hunting her. They didn't realize Nightingale had spent 3 years mapping every system, every vulnerability, every escape route on this base. After the movie, Kate helped clean up, then drove home. The surveillance SUV was back parked down the street with a clear view of her cottage. She made a show of normal evening routine lights, on shadow moving past windows, TV playing. In reality, she was in her hidden basement, fingers flying across keyboards. She pulled up Pierce's financial records, 3 deposits from offshore accounts in the last month. The Iranian connection went back further emails in code photographs from conferences where they'd accidentally met. But the real prize was Veronica's computer. Her encryption was good, but not good enough. Kate broke through after an hour, finding communication with someone designated only as V. Vanguard. The messages were careful coded, but the meaning was clear. Veronica was Vanguard's handler, had been for years. Pierce was just the latest asset positioned to find and eliminate threats. Kate composed an encrypted message to James. Trap confirmed tomorrow. Multiple hostiles. Vanguard connection verified. Request abort and immediate extraction. The response was almost instant. Negative. Use trap. Draw them out. 24 hours. Bringing friends. J. Friends. James was bringing his SEAL team. That changed everything. Kate began typing new code, preparing surprises for tomorrow night. If Pierce wanted to trap Nightingale, he was about to learn why she'd been CIA's most successful honey trap operator. Sometimes the best way to escape a trap was to make your enemies think they'd already won. She worked until dawn, then caught 2 hours of sleep before her alarm. Another day of being Catherine Winslow art teacher. Another day of pretending she didn't know Pierce was watching her every move. The children painted flowers today. Kate helped them mix colors, praised their efforts, acted perfectly normal, while 3 different surveillance teams watched her classroom. She spotted 2 new cameras, a parabolic microphone aimed at her windows, and at least one parent who lingered too long at pickup, likely an asset Pierce had activated. During lunch, Admiral Thompson visited. Mrs. Winslow, heard there was some budget discussion about your program. Just resource allocation, Admiral. I understand the constraints. Do you? He studied her carefully. Because I've just authorized emergency funding. Full restoration plus a 20% increase for next quarter. Kate saw Pierce watching from across the courtyard, his face dark with anger. That's very generous, Admiral. It's very strategic. Good programs deserve protection. He lowered his voice. Whatever you're planning, be careful. I can't help if you're caught somewhere you shouldn't be. After he left, Kate realized Thompson knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. He was providing cover while maintaining plausible deniability. That afternoon, Veronica visited again, this time with 3 other officers' wives, a power play bringing witnesses. Catherine, we're organizing the Marine Corps Birthday Ball Committee. You'll help, won't you? Of course. Wonderful. You'll handle cleanup. After the event, naturally. We wouldn't want you to miss the actual ball. Oh, wait. Your husband's away, isn't he? Such a shame. The other wives looked uncomfortable, but peer pressure kept them silent. He might make it back, Kate said mildly. Oh, a surprise return. How romantic. What did you say he does again? I didn't. Veronica's smile sharpened. How mysterious. Almost like he doesn't exist at all. One of the other wives, Margaret Chen, spoke up. Don't be ridiculous, Veronica. I've seen his picture on Kate's desk. Pictures can be of anyone, Veronica replied. For all we know, she pulled it from a magazine. That's enough. Kate's voice carried an edge that made everyone step back. For just a moment, Nightingale looked out through Catherine's eyes. Veronica saw it and smiled triumphantly. She'd gotten the reaction she wanted, the crack in the mask she could report to Pierce. After they left, Kate sat at her desk staring at the photo of James. Taken 2 years ago, during a brief leave, he was in civilian clothes, laughing at something off-camera, looking nothing like the deadly operator he was. Tonight she'd spring their trap. Tomorrow he'd arrive with a SEAL team. And then Pierce and Veronica would learn why you didn't hunt wolves with rabbit's tricks. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Weather update: storm arriving early. Lightning expected by midnight. J. Kate smiled. Lightning was James's team's call sign. They'd be here tonight, not tomorrow, which meant she didn't have to survive the trap, she had to turn it into an ambush. She spent the rest of the afternoon teaching being normal, being invisible. But as the sun set over the Pacific, Catherine Winslow began to disappear, and Nightingale started to emerge. At 1900, she attended the weekly teachers' meeting visible to everyone. At 2000, she was at the base library helping with children's reading hour. At 2100, she stopped by the base commissary buying groceries she'd never eat. At 2130, she vanished. The surveillance team watching her cottage reported her car in the driveway, lights on inside. They didn't know about the tunnel she'd dug 3 years ago connecting her basement to the storm drain system. They didn't know she could move through the base underground, invisible to every camera. Building 5 sat dark and quiet, its server room humming with electronic life. Kate emerged from a maintenance access panel, already in tactical gear. She'd disabled the internal cameras 20 minutes ago with a targeted EMP burst that would look like routine electrical fluctuation. The trap was obvious. Motion sensors that weren't there yesterday. Pressure plates under the server room floor knock out gas canisters in the ventilation system. Pierce had been thorough but predictable. Kate smiled and got to work. She triggered the motion sensors deliberately, letting them think she'd been caught. The pressure plates activated, but she'd already jammed the gas release valves. Let them think their trap had worked. While Pierce's team rushed toward Building 5, Kate was already gone, moving through the walls like a ghost. She'd spent 3 years mapping every crawl space, every maintenance tunnel, every forgotten passage in this base. She emerged in Building 7, where Pierce had met his Iranian contact. The evidence was still there, electronic residue from their communications DNA from coffee cups they'd thought they'd destroyed. She collected it all. Her earpiece crackled. "Nightingale, this is Ghost. On station with Lightning. Where's the party?" "Building 5 thinks they have me. Building 7 has evidence. Pierce is probably mobile with a capture team." "Copy. Lightning takes 5. I'll handle Pierce. You. Visiting Veronica." James's low chuckle warmed her. "Save some fun for me." "Always do." Kate moved through the base like death itself, avoiding patrols with practiced ease. Pierce's security upgrades meant nothing when you'd been trained by the best infiltrators in the world. Veronica's base housing sat on Colonel's Row, all manicured lawns and perfect facades. Kate bypassed the security system in seconds. Veronica had used Russian protocols, probably not even realizing the signature they left. She found Veronica in her study, typing rapidly on an encrypted laptop. The woman's face went pale when Kate materialized from the shadows. "Hello, Veronica." Veronica lunged for a panic button, but Kate was faster, pinning her wrist with precise pressure that sent the woman to her knees. "Scream and I break it," Kate said conversationally. "Now let's talk about Vanguard. I don't know what—" Kate increased the pressure slightly. Veronica gasped. "Moscow State University class of '98. Recruited by SVR in your junior year. Embedded in America as a sleeper. Activated 6 years ago when you married Pierce. How am I doing?" Veronica's eyes widened with real fear now. "You've been handling Vanguard for 3 years. Pierce doesn't even know, does he? He thinks he's running his own operation, but you're pulling his strings for someone else." "You're insane." Kate pulled out a small device, holding it to Veronica's laptop. The screen flickered, then displayed every encrypted file, every coded message, every hidden photograph. "Delete it all you want. I've already transmitted copies to Langley, the Pentagon, and a few friends in Moscow who'd love to know their old asset has been turned." Veronica went white. "Moscow will kill you probably, unless you cooperate." Before Veronica could respond, Kate's earpiece activated. "Nightingale, we have a problem. Pierce isn't at Building 5. He's heading your way with a full tactical team." Kate looked out the window. 6 SUVs were converging on Colonel's Row lights, off moving fast. "Veronica, you have 2 choices. Come with me and live or stay here and let Pierce clean up his mess." "He wouldn't." "You're blown. You're a liability. What do you think he'll do?" Veronica's face crumbled as she realized the truth. In this world, burned assets didn't retire. They disappeared. "There's a tunnel access in your basement," Kate said. "Installed it 2 years ago when the previous occupant lived here. We go now or we don't go at all." Veronica grabbed a go bag from under her desk, proof she'd always known this day might come. They made it to the basement just as the front door exploded inward. The tunnel was tight, dirty, and dark. Kate moved through it like she'd been born to it, while Veronica struggled behind her. They emerged 3 blocks away in a children's playground, where James materialized from the shadows. "Wife," he said, his smile deadly in the moonlight. "Husband," she replied. "Meet Veronica. She's going to tell us everything about Vanguard." James's team had neutralized Building 5's trap, capturing 4 of Pierce's men. The evidence Kate had gathered was already being transmitted to naval intelligence. But Pierce himself had vanished along with his core security team. "He's going for scorched earth," James said. "If he can't capture you, he'll destroy you. Make you the villain." Kate nodded. She'd expected this. "The Marine Corps birthday ball. 3 days away. He'll make his move there publicly with everyone watching." "Then we give him what he wants," James said. "A show no one will forget." As dawn broke over Camp Pendleton, Catherine Winslow returned to her cottage, slipping back through her tunnel to maintain the illusion. Her surveillance teams reported nothing unusual she'd never left. But in a secure facility off base, Veronica Pierce was spilling every secret she'd held for 20 years. And a SEAL team was preparing for war. The trap had been sprung, but not the way Pierce had planned. Now, it was Nightingale's turn to hunt, and she never missed her prey. The morning after Veronica's extraction felt wrong from the moment Kate opened her eyes. The surveillance team outside hadn't moved their SUV, still parked in the same position, engine cold. Professional watchers rotated every 4 hours to avoid fatigue. These hadn't moved in 8. Kate, dressed normally, performed her morning routine for the cameras, but her instincts screamed danger. She checked her hidden phone while making coffee. James's last message was 6 hours old, too long for an active operation. The knock at her door came at 0700, precise and authoritative. Through the peephole, she saw Sergeant Major Miller, flanked by 2 MPs she didn't recognize. "Mrs. Winslow," Miller's voice carried through the door, formal and cold. "Please open up." She did, playing the confused teacher perfectly. "Sergeant Major, is everything all right?" "Ma'am, Colonel Pierce requires your immediate presence at headquarters. There's been an incident." The MPs stood at angles that blocked any escape route. Their hands rested on their sidearms, not threatening, but ready. Miller's eyes held a warning she couldn't decipher. "What kind of incident are the children?" "The children are fine, ma'am. Please come with us." Kate grabbed her purse, slipping her phone into a hidden pocket. The ride to headquarters was silent, but she noticed they didn't take the direct route. They were avoiding the main gate, the family housing areas, anywhere she might have allies. Pierce's office had been transformed into an interrogation room. The comfortable chairs were gone, replaced by a single metal seat facing a table covered in photographs. Pierce stood behind it, his uniform immaculate, his expression triumphant. "Mrs. Winslow, or should I say Nightingale?" Kate let confusion cross her face. "Colonel, I don't understand." Pierce slammed his hand on the table. The photographs scattered images of her from last night, grainy but identifiable, entering Building 7, emerging from the tunnel system, meeting with James. "Infrared satellites," Pierce said. "Amazing what the Pentagon authorizes when hunting a traitor." "Those images could be anyone." "Stop." Pierce pulled out another set of photos. These were older, clearer. Kate in Moscow 12 years ago. In Prague, Berlin, Istanbul. Each one from operations that officially never happened. "Veronica Pierce disappeared last night," he continued. kidnapped, according to witnesses who saw her forced into a tunnel system only someone with intimate knowledge of this base could know about. I was home all night. Your surveillance team found an empty house with lights on timers and recorded TV noise. Pierce smiled coldly. You're good, but not that good. Kate shifted tactics, letting steel enter her voice. Where's Admiral Thompson? Recalled to Washington. Emergency meeting about Pacific Fleet readiness. He can't help you now. The door opened, and 3 more people entered, 2 civilians in suits that screamed federal agency and a woman in naval intelligence uniform. Commander Sarah Mitchell, Naval Counterintelligence. The woman introduced herself. We have questions about your relationship with several foreign nationals. I want a lawyer. You're not under arrest, Pierce said smoothly. This is just a friendly conversation about base security. Of course, if you refuse to cooperate, we might need to discuss criminal charges. Espionage, kidnapping, impersonating a federal officer. I'm a school teacher. Pierce pulled out a tablet, swiping through files. Catherine Winslow doesn't exist before 2021. No birth certificate, no social security number that checks out past surface level, no education records that survive scrutiny. You're a ghost wearing a teacher's mask. Kate remained silent, calculating. They had pieces, but not the whole picture. They didn't know about James's team, or where Veronica was being held. She needed to buy time. Show me one piece of actual evidence, she said finally. Not shadows in photos or missing records. Actual proof I've done anything wrong. Commander Mitchell stepped forward. How about this? She produced a laptop, Veronica's laptop. Found in your cottage's hidden basement, along with enough surveillance equipment to run a small intelligence operation. Kate's blood went cold. They'd found her basement, but that was impossible unless your husband sends his regards, Pierce said, and her world tilted. He triggered another video on his tablet. James bloodied and restrained, sitting in what looked like a shipping container. 2 men in balaclavas stood beside him. Insurance, Pierce explained. You cooperate fully. Tell us everything about your network, your handlers, your objectives, and maybe he lives. You resist, and well, SEALs are tough, but everyone breaks eventually. You're making a mistake, Kate said quietly. I don't know who you think I am. Pierce backhanded her, the blow snapping her head sideways. Blood filled her mouth. 12 years ago, your father tried to expose Vanguard. We had him killed. You thought you were being clever disappearing hiding here. But Vanguard has eyes everywhere. The moment you saved that Marine on the beach, showed those skills we knew. Miller stepped forward. Sir, perhaps we should... Shut up, Sergeant Major. You've served your purpose. Kate looked at Miller, understanding flooding through her. He hadn't betrayed her, he'd been forced to bring her in. His family was probably being held too. I'll make you a deal, Pierce continued. Full confession, all your contacts, everything about the CIA's operations against Vanguard. In exchange, you and your husband get new identities, disappear forever. Otherwise... He gestured at the photographs now showing several of Kate's students. Emma Rodriguez, Tommy Chen, little Sarah Miller, the Sergeant Major's granddaughter. You wouldn't. Training accident, gas leak. So many ways children can disappear on a military base. Pierce's smile was reptilian. You have 1 hour to decide. They left her alone with Mitchell, who sat across from her with a legal pad and recorder. Let's start simple, Mitchell said. Your real name. Kate said nothing, her mind racing. James captured, but by whom Pierce didn't have the resources for that kind of operation. The video felt wrong, staged, and James would never let himself be taken alive unless it was part of the plan. I need water, Kate said. Mitchell sighed and left the room. The moment the door closed, Kate moved. The cameras in the corners were standard military issue. She'd hacked the same model dozens of times. Using a hairpin, she triggered a feedback loop that would replay the last 30 seconds continuously. The ventilation grate came loose with practiced ease. Kate pulled herself up into the ductwork just as Mitchell returned. She heard the commanders curse the alarm being raised, but she was already moving through the walls of the building she'd mapped years ago. She emerged 2 floors down in a supply closet. From there, she accessed the building's internal communications system through a maintenance panel. Pierce's voice echoed through the speakers. "Lock down immediately. She's in the building. Seal all exits." But Kate wasn't trying to leave. She was hunting. She found Pierce's real office, not the interrogation room, but his private workspace. His computer was encrypted, but she'd installed a backdoor 3 days ago when she'd planted the bugs. The files opened like flowers. And there it was, the truth that made her stomach drop. James hadn't been captured. The video was from his last mission 6 months ago, edited to look recent. Pierce had nothing but bluffs and threats. But something else was in the files. Communication with Vanguard, and a name that stopped her cold General Patricia Harding, Vice Chair of the Joint Chiefs. The mole went that high. She photographed everything with a microcamera, then uploaded it to 3 separate cloud servers. Insurance of her own. Footsteps in the hallway. Multiple sets converging on her location. Kate looked at the window-reinforced glass 3 stories up. Survivable, but she'd likely break something. The door burst open. Pierce stood there with 6 MPs, weapons drawn. "Nowhere to run, Nightingale." Kate smiled. "Who says I'm running?" She pressed a button on her phone. Every computer in the building screamed to life, displaying the classified files she'd just uploaded. Pierce's communications with Iranian intelligence, financial records showing payments from Moscow. And at the center of it all, General Harding's authorization for the operation that killed Thomas Winslow. "You just broadcasted classified intelligence across an unsecured network," Pierce said. "That's treason." "No, that's exposure. Every person on this base can now see what you really are." Pierce raised his weapon. "Then you won't live to see the consequences." The window exploded inward. 3 figures in black tactical gear swung through on ropes, moving with liquid precision. Before Pierce could react, he was disarmed and on the ground. James pulled off his balaclava, grinning at his wife. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was murder." His team secured the room in seconds. Pierce struggled against his restraints, screaming about authority and chains of command. "Funny thing about chains of command," James said. "They break when half the links are corrupt." Kate moved to Pierce, kneeling so they were eye level. "You killed my father. You threatened children. You made this personal. Vanguard is done. Veronica gave us everything. Names, dates, operations. General Harding was arrested 20 minutes ago." Pierce's face went white. "You're lying." James tossed him a phone, showing news footage General Harding being led away in handcuffs, FBI agents swarming the Pentagon. "Your move triggered contingencies you didn't know existed," Kate explained. "The moment you took me for interrogation, you validated every suspicion about insider threats. Naval intelligence was already watching you. I was just the bait." "The Admiral never left. He's been in the base bunker running the real operation while you played your games." The door opened again. Admiral Thompson entered, flanked by federal agents. "Colonel Pierce, you're under arrest for treason, espionage, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 30 other charges were still tallying." As they dragged Pierce away, he screamed, "You think you've won? Vanguard is bigger than Harding. They're everywhere." Kate watched him go, then turned to James. "He's right. This was just one head of the Hydra." "Then we keep cutting," James replied, pulling her into his arms. "How's your cover? Blown to hell." "Mine too. Guess we need new identities." Admiral Thompson cleared his throat. "Actually, about that. The Pentagon is very interested in having Nightingale and Ghost continue operating. Officially dead, of course, but with full resources to hunt the rest of Vanguard's network. Kate looked at the Admiral, then at James. What about the kids, my students? We'll find another teacher, someone almost as good as you. She thought about Emma Rodriguez, Tommy Chen, all the children who'd painted their fears and hopes in her classroom. Then she thought about her father, about the network that had killed him still operating in shadows. One condition, she said. We get to come back. When it's done, when Vanguard is truly dead, we get to come home. Thompson nodded. I'll hold that door open myself. That evening, Kate stood in her empty classroom one last time. The children's paintings still covered the walls, bright splashes of color against institutional beige. She'd told them she had to leave for family reasons. They'd cried, hugged her, made her promise to write. She couldn't keep that promise, but she'd keep another one. She'd make the world safer for them, even if they never knew it. Miller found her there, his weathered face showing relief. Heard you're leaving. Heard you helped them take me in. They had my granddaughter under surveillance. Implied things. He paused. But I also knew you'd never let yourself be taken unless you wanted to be. Kate smiled. You gave me the warning. Building 7 Pierce's meeting. You knew I'd start hunting. Your father saved my life. Least I could do was give you the battlefield intel. He handed her something, a small wooden nightingale hand-carved. Made this for him years ago. He never got to see it. Figure you should have it. Kate took the carving, feeling the weight of history in its small form. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just finish what he started. And when you do come home, these kids need their teacher back. As she left the base that night with James, Kate looked back one last time. Pierce was in federal custody. Veronica was in witness protection, singing every secret she knew, and General Harding's arrest was sending shockwaves through Washington. But somewhere out there, other Vanguard assets were scrambling, covering tracks, preparing for war. They thought they were hunting a ghost and a nightingale. They had no idea they were now the prey. The SUV drove through the gates of Camp Pendleton, heading toward a military transport that would take them to their new staging ground. In 12 hours, Catherine Winslow and James Winslow would cease to exist. But Nightingale and Ghost would rise from those ashes, and Vanguard would learn what real fear meant. You okay? James asked, taking her hand. They threatened our kids, Kate said quietly. Not our biological kids, but ours nonetheless. Every child I taught, every family we protected. And now we remind them why threatening family is the last mistake anyone should make. The plane lifted off into the darkness, carrying 2 of the most dangerous people alive, toward a war that would be fought in shadows, in silence, in the spaces between what the world saw and what really happened. Behind them, Camp Pendleton slept peacefully, unaware that its quiet art teacher had just declared war on one of the most powerful conspiracies in the world. But first, there was work to do. Veronica had given them names 17 Vanguard assets embedded across the military and intelligence communities. Each one would need to be investigated, exposed, neutralized. Where do we start? James asked, reading through the files. Kate pulled up a photograph, a naval base in Pearl Harbor, where Commander Rachel Stone ran intelligence operations for the Pacific Fleet. We start where my father's investigation ended. Pearl Harbor. Commander Stone was his last target before Moscow. James studied the image. She looks clean. Spotless record commendations, perfect career. The best assets always do, but look closer. Kate enhanced a section of the photo showing Stone at an awards ceremony. See the man 3 rows back, Viktor Kozlov, Russian GRU, supposedly retired. What's he doing at a U.S. military ceremony? Could be coincidence. Could be. Or it could be Vanguard. Only one way to find out. The plane banked toward Hawaii, carrying them toward their next hunt. But even as they planned, Kate couldn't shake Pierce's final words. Vanguard was bigger than they knew, deeper than they'd imagined. 3 days later, Pearl Harbor Naval Base hummed with morning activity. A new intelligence analyst named Sarah Chen reported for duty, her credentials impeccable, her background thoroughly vetted. Nobody noticed she had Catherine Winslow's eyes. In the Special Operations Compound, a new tactical instructor introduced himself as Tom Reynolds. His students would never know they were learning from Ghost himself. Commander Stone welcomed them both with professional courtesy, unaware that the hunters had just walked through her door. The game began again, but this time Nightingale and Ghost weren't hiding. They were hunting, and Vanguard's days were numbered. That night, as Kate monitored Stone's communications from a safe house overlooking Pearl Harbor, she found what she was looking for, an encrypted message using the same protocols as Pierce's communications. Contact confirmed. Nightingale and Ghost eliminated, proceeding with Phase 3. Kate smiled coldly. Let them think they'd won. Let them believe the threat was neutralized. She typed her own message, routing it through 7 proxies to an untraceable server. The Nightingale sings at midnight. The Ghost walks at dawn. Vanguard falls at twilight. Within hours, 17 Vanguard assets across the globe would receive that message. They'd panic, make mistakes, expose themselves trying to verify if the threat was real, and Kate and James would be waiting. The war for the shadows had begun, and Nightingale had already won the first battle she'd made them afraid. In her pocket, the wooden Nightingale her father never got to see seemed to pulse with warmth. Somewhere Thomas Winslow's ghost was smiling. The hunt was on. The message from Commander Stone changed everything. Kate stared at the decrypted text on her screen, while James checked his weapons in their Pearl Harbor safe house. Phase 3 initiating. Camp Pendleton 75th anniversary. Public termination authorized. They're going back, James said, reading over her shoulder. They're going to kill someone at the celebration. Not someone, Kate corrected, her blood cold. Everyone who helped us. Miller, Thompson, Rodriguez, every ally we had. She pulled up the base calendar. The anniversary celebration is in 18 hours. We're supposed to be dead. Then we'd better resurrect ourselves. James was already moving, pulling out encrypted phones. I'll contact the team. How many can we trust? At Pearl Harbor, none. Stone has this place wired. Kate's fingers flew across the keyboard. But I can access Pendleton's security feeds from here. They're already setting up for the celebration. The main parade ground filled her screen. Workers erected stages, hung banners, positioned chairs for 5,000 attendees. She zoomed in on the modified flagpole at the center, reinforced steel new mounting points that shouldn't be there. James, look at this. He leaned in, studying the modifications. Those aren't for flags. Those are restraint points. They're planning public executions. Kate's phone buzzed with an encrypted message from an unknown source. Nightingale compromised. Pendleton trap confirmed. Do not return. Friend. Friend, James asked. Could be anyone. Or it could be Vanguard trying to keep us away. Kate made her decision. We go back, but not as Sarah Chen and Tom Reynolds. As ourselves, as ghosts, the real kind. The flight from Pearl Harbor to California took 6 hours. 6 hours where Kate and James planned, coordinated, and prepared for war. By the time they landed at a private airfield 50 miles from Pendleton, they had 7 confirmation messages from James's SEAL team. Lightning was reassembling. But something was wrong at Pendleton. The base's communication channels were full of chatter about security changes, last-minute celebration editions, VIP arrivals that weren't on any official list. Kate hacked into Pierce's replacement's computer. Colonel David Harrison brought in from Washington specifically for the anniversary. His files were too clean, too perfect. Another Vanguard asset. "They didn't just survive our attack," she told James as they drove toward the base in a stolen maintenance van. "They accelerated their timeline. Whatever Phase 3 is, it's bigger than just killing our allies. Munt coup, has to be. Public execution of traitors at martial law declaration seize control of the largest Marine base on the West Coast." Kate pulled up satellite imagery. "Look at these vehicle movements. Those aren't normal patrol patterns. Russian and Chinese intelligence signatures hidden in routine traffic special forces units, masquerading as security teams, enough firepower to hold Pendleton against a counter-assault for days." "They're not just taking the base," James realized. "They're creating an incident. International Crisis Force, America's hand into what? War. Has to be. Vanguard profits from conflict, always has." Kate's phone buzzed with another message, this one from Admiral Thompson's personal emergency code. "Status compromised. Miller detained. Rodriguez missing. Come home, AT." "It's authentic," Kate confirmed after running cryptographic verification. "Thompson's still free but running out of time." They reached the base perimeter as dawn broke over the Pacific. The celebration would begin at noon, 5 hours to stop a coup that had been years in planning. James's team had infiltrated through different vectors. Lightning 1 and 2 came in as catering staff. 3 and 4 posed as technical crew for the sound system. 5 and 6 were already inside, having maintained their covers as base security. Kate and James took the most dangerous route straight through the front gate. But not as themselves. Kate had become Maria Gonzalez, a Gold Star wife, invited to place a wreath. James was her brother, recently discharged, wearing a Purple Heart that wasn't his, but carried the weight of real sacrifice. Their documents were perfect, their covers unshakable. The young Marine at the gate barely glanced at their IDs, too focused on the stream of vehicles arriving for the celebration. But Kate noticed the second checkpoint, unofficial, unmarked, scanning everyone with equipment that didn't belong at a birthday party. "Biometric scanners," James murmured. "They're cataloging everyone. Building a list. People who attend, people who don't. Classic purge methodology." They passed through without incident, but Kate felt eyes on them. Somewhere in the command structure, someone was watching, waiting, planning. The parade ground had been transformed into an amphitheater of patriotism. American flags everywhere, martial music playing, families arriving in their finest clothes. Children ran between the chairs playing tag, unaware they were in a kill zone. Kate spotted Emma Rodriguez near the art classroom, her mother holding her hand. The little girl wore her best dress, the one she'd painted butterflies on during Kate's last class. The innocence of it made Kate's resolve harden to steel. "Contact," James whispered. "Northwest corner. Harrison's got a command post." Colonel Harrison stood surrounded by security personnel who moved like special forces, too smooth, too coordinated, too deadly for standard military police. Kate recognized the formation protective detail around a high-value asset. But Harrison wasn't the real threat. Behind him, in dress uniforms that didn't quite fit American military standards, stood 3 men having an animated discussion in what they thought was private. Kate read their lips from across the field, Russian, discussing timing and explosive placements. "They're going to blow something," she told James. "Create chaos, then use it as cover for the executions." "The stage, has to be. Maximum casualties cameras rolling, perfect propaganda moment. Kate's earpiece crackled. Lightning 3's voice. Package located, basement of building 12. Rodriguez is here, badly beaten but alive. They've got at least 6 others. Can you extract? Negative. Too many guards. It's a kill room, Nightingale. They're planning to execute them during the chaos, make it look like foreign agents were responsible. The pieces clicked together in Kate's mind. My God, they're going to stage a foreign attack on American soil, execute traitors who were supposedly working with the attackers, use it to justify immediate military response against Russia or China, whichever they choose to blame. Or both, James said grimly. Start World War III with America as the righteous victim. The celebration officially began at noon with the national anthem. 5,000 voices rose in unison while Kate and James moved through the crowd like predators, marking targets, identifying threats, preparing for war. Admiral Thompson appeared on stage, his dress whites immaculate, his expression calm. But Kate saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes swept the crowd looking for allies who might not be there. Distinguished guests, Thompson began, his voice carrying across the parade ground. We gather today to celebrate 75 years of excellence, of service, of sacrifice. Behind him, Kate noticed movement. Harrison's men were positioning themselves, creating firing lines that looked like honor guard positions. The modified flagpole gleamed in the sun, its restraint points hidden by decorative bunting that could be torn away in seconds. Her phone vibrated. Miller's emergency code. Underground. Building 7. Come now, MM. Building 7, where everything had started. Kate and James exchanged glances, then split up. She headed for Building 7, while he coordinated with Lightning Team. The condemned building sat empty and forbidding yellow tape across its entrances. Kate slipped through a broken window, her senses hyper-alert. The darkness inside felt alive, breathing with hidden threat. Miller, she called softly. Down here. His voice came from below, strained with pain. She found the basement access descended into darkness, that her night vision contacts turned green-gray. Miller sat propped against a wall, blood seeping through his uniform. Sergeant Major Rodriguez lay beside him, unconscious but breathing. Trap, Miller gasped. Had to warn you. Who did this? Stone. She's here, running the whole thing with Harrison. Miller coughed blood. Kate, they know you're alive. This whole thing, it's bait. They want you to reveal yourself, become the villain they need. Where's Stone now? Command bunker. She's got the base's nuclear authentication codes. Kate's blood froze. Camp Pendleton didn't house nuclear weapons, but it had authentication protocols for the Pacific Fleet's nuclear submarines. Stone could start a nuclear exchange from that bunker. Can you move? Negative. But Rodriguez, get him out. He's got evidence, recorded everything before they grabbed us. Kate checked Rodriguez's pockets, finding a micro recorder. She played it back, Stone and Harrison discussing the attack, the executions, the nuclear protocols. Everything they needed to stop this if they could survive long enough to use it. Her earpiece crackled. Nightingale, lightning lid. We have a problem. They've accelerated timeline. Executions in 10 minutes. Extract Miller and Rodriguez from Building 7 basement. I'm going after Stone. Negative, that's suicide. That's necessary. Kate left Miller with a weapon and her backup phone, then moved through Building 7's forgotten passages toward the command bunker. The celebration noise grew louder, patriotic songs, children laughing, families unaware. Death was minutes away. The bunker entrance was too well guarded for frontal assault. But Kate knew these buildings, their bones and blood. She found the maintenance tunnel that connected to the bunker's air system, crawling through decades of dust and forgotten secrets. She emerged in a storage room, silent as smoke. Through the door, she heard Stone's voice. 5 minutes to detonation. All teams confirm ready. Multiple confirmations came through speakers. Kate counted at least 12 separate teams, all positioned for maximum carnage. She had one advantage: they thought she was still being Catherine Winslow, the teacher. They didn't know Nightingale had fully awakened. The door opened silently under her picks. The command center spread before her banks of monitors, showing every angle of the celebration communication equipment linking teams across the base, and at the center, Commander Stone in full dress uniform, her fingers dancing across nuclear authentication terminals. 3 minutes, Stone announced. Begin final positioning. On the screens, Kate watched Harrison's men moving toward their victims. Admiral Thompson still spoke from the stage, unaware that executioners were closing in. Emma Rodriguez and her mother sat in the third row, perfect position for camera coverage when the bombs went off. Kate moved like liquid shadow, crossing 20 feet of open ground without a sound. She was 3 feet from Stone when the woman sensed her spinning with a pistol already in hand. But Kate was faster, deflecting the weapon as it fired the bullet-shattering monitors instead of her skull. They crashed together, 2 trained killers in a dance that would end with death. Stone was good FSB training, overlaid with American Special Forces techniques. But Kate had been forged in darker fires, trained by men who killed gods and toppled governments. She broke Stone's wrist with a precise strike, then drove her knee into the woman's solar plexus. Stone doubled over, gasping, but managed to hit an alarm button. Red lights bathed the bunker. Lockdown protocols engaged, sealing them inside. 2 minutes until detonation, the automated system announced. You can't stop it, Stone gasped. The commands are already sent. Your people die and you'll be blamed for it all. Kate smiled, cold as winter. You assume I came here to stop you. She pulled out James's gift from their anniversary, a military-grade signal broadcaster small as a lipstick. 1 button, and every frequency within 5 miles was overwhelmed with a single transmission. Rodriguez's recording Stone's confession, the entire conspiracy laid bare. Every phone at the celebration received it. Every radio, every television camera, every military communication device. 5,000 people heard Stone and Harrison planning mass murder, discussing nuclear protocols, naming vanguard assets across the globe. Stone lunged for the broadcaster, but Kate caught her throat, slamming her against the authentication terminal. 1 minute until detonation. Through the monitors, Kate saw chaos erupting. Harrison trying to run, tackled by Marines who'd just learned they'd been betrayed. Russian assets pulling weapons cut down by Lightning Team's precise fire. Parents grabbing children, fleeing the killing ground that had been revealed. But the bombs were still active, the countdown still running. Kate's fingers flew across the authentication terminal. Stone laughed through blood. You need my biometrics and codes. Without them... Kate produced a small device from her pocket, CIA tech, that shouldn't exist, that recorded biometric data from anyone within 3 feet. She'd captured Stone's print's retinal pattern, even her DNA signature during their fight. 30 seconds until detonation. The terminal accepted the biometric data, but the codes, she needed the codes. Kate pressed her knife against Stone's throat. Give me the abort codes. Never. Then everyone dies, including you. I die for the cause. 10 seconds until detonation. Kate made a choice that wasn't a choice at all. She grabbed Stone's head, forcing her to look at the monitors, showing Emma Rodriguez crying in her mother's arms. Look at her, 6 years old. What cause is worth her death? 5 seconds. Stone's composure cracked. 77 Alpha 99 Omega. Kate input the code. The terminal flashed green. Detonation cancelled. Relief flooded through her for exactly 1 second before Stone's backup pistol pressed against her ribs. The woman smiled through broken teeth. "You always were too soft, Nightingale." The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, but it wasn't Stone's weapon that fired. James stood in the doorway. He'd just breached his rifle, smoking. Stone collapsed, her last expression one of genuine surprise. "Thought you could use backup," he said casually. "Took you long enough." "Had to deal with Harrison. He's singing like a bird, by the way." Named 37 Vanguard assets before Lightning II even started the enhanced interrogation. Kate looked at the monitors. The celebration ground was chaos, but controlled Marines and SEALs working together to secure assets, protect civilians, establish order. Admiral Thompson had taken command, his voice calm and authoritative over the speakers. "All personnel and guests remain calm. The threat has been neutralized. Medical teams are standing by." Kate found Emma Rodriguez on one screen, safe in her mother's arms. The little girl was crying, but unharmed. Tomorrow she'd need a new art teacher, but she'd be alive to need one. "Vanguard's done," James said, reading through Harrison's confession on his phone. "This was their big play. Without it, without Stone and Harrison, their network collapses." "No," Kate said quietly. "This was just one head. There are others. There always are." The bunker's lockdown lifted as security forces breached the doors. Admiral Thompson himself entered, taking in the scene, Stone's body, the nuclear terminal, Kate and James standing amid the wreckage. "Mr. and Mrs. Winslow," he said formally. "Officially, you're both dead, killed in Hawaii 3 days ago. And unofficially, you just saved 5,000 lives and prevented World War III. He paused. "There will be questions, investigations. Some people will want to paint you as villains despite the evidence." "We know," Kate said. "That's why we're staying dead." Thompson nodded slowly. "The terrorists who attacked today, foreign agents who infiltrated our military, were stopped by brave Marines and SEALs. No one else was involved. That's the official story. What about our allies, Miller Rodriguez? Will receive medical attention and commendations for their bravery. Their families will be protected." Kate looked at the monitors one last time. The parade ground was clearing, families heading home, the celebration that became a nightmare, fading into memory that would be officially forgotten. "There's more work to do," she told Thompson. "Vanguard has other assets, other plans." "Then I suppose Mr. and Mrs. Winslow will remain dead for a while longer." As they left the bunker, Kate noticed something on one of the monitors, a figure in the crowd she recognized but shouldn't be there. General Patricia Harding, supposedly in federal custody, standing at the base's perimeter fence, watching everything unfold. "James," she whispered, but when she looked again, the figure was gone. "What is it? Nothing. Maybe nothing." But her instincts screamed otherwise. They vanished from Camp Pendleton as invisibly as they'd arrived, two ghosts who'd prevented apocalypse, but couldn't claim credit. Behind them, the base began the long process of healing, of investigating, of understanding how deeply the rot had spread. In her pocket, Kate still carried the wooden nightingale Miller had carved. It reminded her that some wars were fought in shadow, some victories never recorded, and some heroes had to remain ghosts. But as they drove toward their next safe house, their next identity, their next hunt, Kate couldn't shake the image of Harding at the fence. If the general was free, if Vanguard had that kind of reach, the war wasn't over. It had just begun. The safe house in San Diego felt like a cage after the adrenaline of Pendleton. Kate couldn't stop replaying the image of Harding at the fence, while James coordinated with Lightning Team through encrypted channels. 3 hours had passed since they'd prevented the massacre. But the war was far from over. "We have a problem," James said, closing his laptop. "Harrison's dead." "What?" "He was in custody. Poisoned. Classic FSB toxin, untraceable after 12 hours. Guards found him 20 minutes ago." James pulled up the footage. But he managed to write something in his own blood before dying. "Harding lives." Kate's blood chilled. She wasn't a hallucination. She was there. "That's impossible. She's in federal maximum security." James stopped pulling up federal detention records. His face went pale. "Jesus Christ. The Patricia Harding in custody. She's been there for 6 months. Before we exposed her. Before anyone knew she was Vanguard." Kate's mind raced. "They've had a double in place this entire time. The real Harding has been free-running operations while everyone thought she was locked up." James's phone buzzed with an emergency code from Admiral Thompson. The message was brief. "Pierce escaped during transport. 3 marshals dead. Miller's family taken. Come now." They looked at each other, understanding, passing without words. This wasn't over. It was escalating. The drive back to Pendleton took 40 minutes that felt like hours. Every shadow could hide an assassin. Every vehicle could carry Vanguard assets. Kate noticed James checking his mirrors more frequently than usual, his hand never far from his weapon. "They're hurting us," she said quietly, "making us predictable." "I know. But Miller's granddaughter, Sarah, 6 years old, takes my art class." Kate's voice hardened. "We're walking into a trap, but we're walking in anyway. Because that's who we are. Because that's who they're counting on us to be." They entered Pendleton through a service gate using Thompson's emergency codes. The base was in lockdown Marines, at every checkpoint, helicopters circling overhead, the aftermath of the failed coup still raw in everyone's mind. Thompson met them in a secure conference room, his face aged years in hours. "They took Miller's family 2 hours ago. His wife, his daughter, his granddaughter. Professional grab team knew exactly when and where to hit." "Demands," James asked. 1. "You two in exchange for the family." Thompson slid a tablet across the table showing a video message. Pierce appeared on screen, his face battered but eyes burning with fanatic fervor. Behind him, barely visible, sat Miller's family bound, gagged, terrified. "Nightingale, Ghost, you have 6 hours to surrender yourselves at the coordinates I'm sending. Come alone, come unarmed, or the sergeant major loses everything he loves, starting with the smallest." The camera panned to show little Sarah Miller, tears streaming down her face, a gun pressed to her temple. Kate memorized every detail in the frame, the walls, the lighting, the shadow angles. "Industrial building, probably a warehouse. See the window reflection? That's the San Diego skyline from the east." "Narrow it down to about 50 buildings," James said. "Not enough time to search them all." "We don't search," Kate said. "We go to the meeting." "That's suicide." "That's what they expect. But they don't know we've already died once today." She turned to Thompson. "Admiral, I need something from you. Off the books, no questions asked." "Name it." "General Harding. The real one. Where would she go if she needed to disappear but stay operational?" Thompson frowned. "She has a cabin in Big Bear. Off the grid but satellite capable. Why? Because Pierce is a soldier. He follows orders, and there's only one person he'd take orders from now." Kate stood her decision made. "James, take lightning team to the coordinates Pierce sent. Make noise, make them think we're both coming. While you go after Harding alone, no. Not alone." She looked at Thompson. "The families of every Marine on this base are under threat as long as Vanguard exists. I'm betting some of those Marines would like to do something about that." Thompson's smile was sharp. "I might know a few volunteers." Within an hour, Kate had a team that officially didn't exist, 12 Marines who'd lost friends to Vanguard's machinations, who'd watched their base nearly burn who wanted payback. They weren't special forces, but they were motivated, and sometimes that was enough. James kissed her goodbye in the armory, both of them gearing up for war. "Don't die," he said simply. "You first." They parted two halves of a lethal whole, each hunting different prey. Kate's convoy moved through the California mountains as dusk painted the sky blood red. The Marines with her were silent, checking weapons, reviewing the hastily drawn assault plan. They knew this was unauthorized, unsanctioned, potentially career-ending. They didn't care. 2 minutes out, Corporal Dixon said from the driver's seat, the same Marine Kate had saved on the beach. His leg was still healing, but he'd insisted on coming. "Thermal imaging shows 6 guards' main house is hot." "She's there," Kate confirmed, studying her tablet. "Satellite intercepts show heavy encrypted traffic from these coordinates. She's running something big." The cabin appeared through the trees, a modest structure that hid sophisticated technology. Solar panels, satellite dishes, defensive positions that looked natural but weren't. "Remember," Kate told her Marines, "Harding is mine. Everyone else is a target." They moved like shadows through the forest, 12 Marines and 1 ghost converging on a target that thought itself safe. The first guard never saw the knife that took him. The second managed half a shout before Dixon's suppressed rifle dropped him. By the time the alarm sounded, they were already inside the perimeter. The firefight was brief but vicious. Harding's security team was professional, but they were outnumbered and surprised. Kate flowed through the combat like water, her movements economical, lethal, purposeful. She found Harding in the main room, standing before a wall of monitors showing feeds from around the world. The general wore civilian clothes, but carried herself with military precision. She didn't turn when Kate entered. "Nightingale, I wondered when you'd find me." "It's over, General. Pierce is walking into a trap. Your network is exposed. Surrender now, and maybe you live long enough for trial." Harding laughed, finally turning. She looked older than her photos worn down by years of deception. "You think this is about Pierce? About Pendleton Child, you're looking at trees and missing the forest." She gestured at the monitors. 17 military bases, 6 intelligence agencies, 3 governments. Vanguard isn't an organization, it's an idea. The idea that the old world order has failed, that something new must rise from its ashes. Through mass murder, through necessary sacrifice, every empire falls, Nightingale. We're just controlling the collapse, ensuring the right people survive to rebuild. Kate noticed movement on one monitor, the warehouse where Pierce held Miller's family. But something was wrong. James's team was breaching, but there were too many defenders positioned too perfectly. "You knew," Kate said. "You knew we'd split up." "Of course. You're predictable in your nobility. Save the innocents, hunt the guilty. Classic American heroism." Harding pulled out a remote detonator. "The warehouse is rigged with enough explosives to level a city block. Your husband and his team are walking into a crematorium." Kate's hand moved to her weapon, but Harding raised the detonator higher. "I die, they die. It's that simple." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Harding activated one monitor, zooming in on the warehouse. Kate could see the charge's professional placement, enough C4 to vaporize everything within 100 meters. Pierce was always expendable, but taking out Ghost and Lightning Team, that's worth losing a pawn. Kate's earpiece crackled, James's voice tense. "Breaching now. Heavy resistance, but manageable." She couldn't warn him without alerting Harding. Her mind raced, calculating angles, distances, possibilities. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. You, the legendary Nightingale, either dead or turned. Imagine what you could accomplish with Vanguard's resources. Your father would have understood. My father died fighting you. Your father died because he was too noble to see the bigger picture. Moscow wasn't about exposing Vanguard. It was about recruiting him. He refused, so he had to be removed. The casual admission of her father's murder made Kate's vision red, but she held control. On the monitors, James's team had reached the hostages. Miller's family was safe being evacuated. But the charges were still live, the trap still set. "You have 10 seconds to decide," Harding said. "Join us, or watch your husband burn." Kate made her choice. The knife left her hand before Harding could react, striking the general's wrist. The detonator fell, and Kate dove for it, catching it inches from the floor. Harding lunged at her with surprising speed, and they crashed together, 2 generations of warriors fighting for the future. Harding was skilled, trained, experienced. But she was also older, slower, and had spent too many years behind a desk while Kate had been in the field. The fight was brutal, but brief. Kate ended it with a chokehold feeling. Harding's struggle weaken, go limp. Not dead unconscious. Death would be too easy, too clean. Harding would face justice. Real justice. She grabbed the general's communication equipment, sending an emergency abort code to Pierce. "Vanguard compromised. Activate Prometheus protocol." Pierce's voice came through speakers. "Confirmed. All units immediate extraction. Burn everything." On the monitors, she watched Pierce's team fleeing the warehouse, abandoning positions, destroying evidence. James's team secured Miller's family without further resistance, confusion evident in their movements, as enemies simply vanished. Kate found what she was looking for in Harding's files: Prometheus Protocol Vanguard's self-destruct contingency. Every asset, every operation, every piece of evidence would be destroyed within 24 hours. The organization would cease to exist, its members scattering their mission abandoned. But there was more. Financial records showing money flows, personnel files with real names and locations, communication logs that implicated officials across the globe. Harding had kept insurance leverage against her own organization. Kate copied everything, then called for backup. Real federal agents this time, ones Thompson had personally vetted. As they took Harding away, the real Harding finally in custody, Kate stood in the cabin watching the monitors go dark one by one as Vanguard died. Her phone rang. James. "Miller's family is safe. Pierce, gone. Probably halfway to a non-extradition country by now. We could hunt him. We could. But he's nothing now. A soldier without an army, a believer without a cause." Kate looked at the blood on her hands. Harding's her own, the symbolic blood of everyone who died for Vanguard's vision. "I'm tired of hunting James." "Then come home." Home. Such a simple word for such a complicated concept. The ride back to Pendleton was quiet. Dixon drove while Kate reviewed the intelligence she'd captured. Thousands of pages that would take months to fully analyze. But the headlines were clear. Vanguard was finished. Its assets were fleeing or flipping its operations. Shutting down its grand vision collapsed into dust. They arrived at Pendleton to find the base in celebration. Word had spread, the threat was over, the conspirators caught or fled, the base safe. Marines hugged their families, children played, without fear the shadow that had hung over them finally lifted. Kate found Miller in the base hospital, his family around him. Sarah Miller ran to her, throwing small arms around Kate's legs. "Mrs. W. Grandpa said you saved us." Kate knelt, hugging the little girl. "Your grandpa saved you. I just helped." Miller's eyes met hers over his granddaughter's head. "Thank you," he said simply. But the weight of those words carried everything: gratitude, respect, understanding of what she'd sacrificed and what she'd preserved. Thompson found them there, his expression official. "Mr. and Mrs. Winslow. A word, They followed him to his office where a woman in a CIA suit waited. Kate recognized her deputy director, Marion Cross, her former handler from another life. "Nightingale," Cross said. "Ghost, impressive work." "We're retired," Kate said firmly. "Of course you are. Dead, actually, according to our records. But hypothetically, if two highly skilled operators wanted to continue serving their country off the books with full resources and minimal oversight." "We want our lives back," James interrupted. "Teaching position's a house with a garden, maybe kids someday. Normal." Cross smiled. "Define normal. Because from where I sit, you two are never going to be accountants and soccer parents, but teachers who occasionally disappear for a few days, consultants who take selective contracts. That could work." Kate and James exchanged glances. It wasn't perfect, but it was possible. A life between worlds, neither fully in the light nor completely in shadow. "Pendleton," Kate asked Thompson. "Would be honored to have you back. Officially, Catherine and James Winslow died in Hawaii. But Sarah and Tom Reynolds, they're model citizens with impeccable records." Kate thought about Emma Rodriguez's paintings, about Tommy Chen's laughter, about all the children who needed someone to help them process their fears and hopes. Then she thought about the other children, the ones in danger from the next vanguard, the next conspiracy, the next threat. 6 months, she told Cross. "We get 6 months of normal. Then we'll talk." Cross nodded, standing. 6 months it is. But when the next nightmare rises, and it will, we'll call. "And we'll answer," James said, "but on our terms." After Cross left, Thompson handed them new identification documents. Sarah and Tom Reynolds' art teacher and military contractor, recently married, recently transferred to Camp Pendleton. "Your cottage is still available," Thompson said. "Bit of fire damage from today's excitement, but nothing that can't be fixed." That evening, as the sun set over the Pacific, Kate stood in her old classroom. Someone had cleaned up the artwork, organizing the children's paintings into neat portfolios. Tomorrow there would be new students, new fears to soothe, new hopes to nurture. James found her there, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Regrets? None. I married a legend who thinks she can be normal. Should be interesting to watch." She turned in his arms, smiling. "We saved them, James. All of them. For now. For now is enough. Tomorrow we'll save them again if we need to." They stood there, as darkness fell, two ghosts, who'd chosen to live two weapons, who'd chosen to teach two legends, who'd chosen love over war. But in her pocket, Kate still carried the wooden nightingale, and in their hidden basement their equipment waited. Because evil never truly died, it just changed faces, and someone had to stand watch in the shadows. For now, though, they were home. The next morning brought controlled chaos, as parents dropped off children for the first day with the new art teacher. Kate stood at her classroom door, greeting each child, memorizing faces, already identifying which ones carried trauma, which ones needed extra attention. Emma Rodriguez was first dragging her mother by the hand. "Look, Mama, it's... The little girl frowned, confused. Kate looked exactly like Mrs. Winslow, but the nameplate said Mrs. Reynolds. "Hello, Emma," Kate said gently. "I'm Mrs. Reynolds. I heard you like to paint butterflies." Emma's face lit up. "Mrs. W. taught me... She had to go away. Her family needed her." "I know. She left notes about all her special students. She said you were very brave." "She did. She did. And she wanted me to make sure you kept painting. Would you like that?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, and just like that, Catherine Winslow's legacy continued through Sarah Reynolds. James appeared at lunch, officially checking the school's security systems, actually bringing her coffee and a sandwich. They ate together in her classroom, surrounded by children's art, planning their new normal life. 6 months, he said. Think we can actually do normal for 6 months? We can try. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then noticed the area code, Moscow. The message was simple. Pierce located. Kandahar. Building something new. A friend who remembers the nightingale. Kate showed it to James. He sighed. So much for 6 months. We don't have to. Yes, we do, because that's who we are. He kissed her forehead. But not today. Today you teach art. I'll install security systems. We'll be normal. And tomorrow we'll see. As afternoon sun streamed through the windows, illuminating children's paintings of hope and fear and dreams, Kate Reynolds taught her students how to mix colors, while Nightingale waited in the shadows, ready for the next call to action. Because evil never rested, but neither did those who stood against it. And somewhere in Moscow, in Kandahar, in 1,000 shadow places around the world, the word spread. Nightingale lives. Ghost walks. Vanguard fell. Be afraid. The message from Kandahar haunted Kate for 3 days before she finally showed it to Admiral Thompson. They sat in his office at dawn, the base still quiet, the weight of unfinished business heavy between them. Pierce is rebuilding, she said simply. New network, new resources, probably new targets. Thompson studied the intelligence she'd compiled satellite imagery of a compound in Afghanistan, financial records showing money flowing through shell companies, communication intercepts, suggesting something called Phoenix Initiative. From Vanguard's ashes, Thompson murmured. They're not even trying to hide the symbolism. It's more than that. Kate pulled up another file. Look at the personnel movements. Former Vanguard assets, discharged military contractors, disillusioned intelligence operatives. Pierce is building an army of people who feel betrayed by the system. And you want to stop him. I want to finish this. Properly, this time. Thompson leaned back, studying her. Sarah Reynolds, the art teacher, sat before him, but Nightingale looked out through her eyes. Your 6 months aren't up. They never really started. Kate stood moving to the window, overlooking the parade ground, where children were arriving for school. Every time Emma Rodriguez paints, I see the gun at her head. Every time I teach, I wonder which child will be the next target. James agrees. James is already packing our gear. Thompson smiled slightly. I figured. Had a conversation with Deputy Director Cross yesterday. Seems the CIA is very interested in the Phoenix Initiative. They're prepared to offer full support, but they want Nightingale and Ghost leading the operation. Officially. Nothing about you two is ever official, but resources, intelligence, backup when needed, all available. Kate turned from the window. I need something first. Pierce mentioned Kandahar specifically in that interrogation video with Harrison. Said something about unfinished business from 2009. What happened in Kandahar in 2009? Thompson's face darkened. Operation Blackwater. Classified beyond classified. A joint operation went wrong, entire team killed except for 2 members. The investigation was sealed, but rumors said someone on our side sold them out. Who were the survivors? Marcus Pierce and Thomas Winslow. Kate's blood chilled. Her father and Pierce had been in Kandahar together. They'd survived something that killed their entire team. My father never mentioned it. He wouldn't have. Everyone involved was under lifetime NDAs. But if Pierce is going back to Kandahar, if he's specifically choosing that location, he's going back to where it started, where he first turned. Kate's mind raced. Admiral, I need access to the Blackwater files. That's impossible. They're sealed by presidential order. Then I need to talk to someone who was there. She paused, remembering something Miller had said. Wait, Miller mentioned serving with my father. Multiple times. Was he part of Blackwater? Thompson's silence was answer enough. Kate found Miller at the base gym working through physical therapy for his injuries. His granddaughter, Sarah, was with him counting his repetitions with 6-year-old seriousness. 29, Grandpa, one more. Miller completed the final pull-up, then dropped to the ground, ruffling Sarah's hair. He saw Kate approaching and sent his granddaughter to get water. Mrs. Reynolds, he said formally, but his eyes said he knew why she was there. Kandahar, 2009. Blackwater. Miller's face went stone. That's classified. Pierce is there now, building something. I need to know what happened. Miller was quiet for a long moment, watching his granddaughter playing by the water fountain. Your father saved my life twice. Once in Beirut, once in Kandahar. The second time cost him everything. Tell me. Miller glanced around, then led her to a quiet corner. Blackwater was supposed to be simple reconnaissance. Map Taliban supply routes, identify key targets, get out clean. 12-man team, best of the best. Your father ran intelligence. Pierce handled security. I was communications. He paused, the memories clearly painful. Third night we were ambushed. Perfect kill box, like they knew exactly where we'd be. 10 men died in the first 30 seconds. Your father Pierce and I survived because we were running perimeter security. Someone leaked your position. Your father thought so. Spent years investigating, never found proof. But Pierce changed after Kandahar. Became obsessed with the idea that America had betrayed us, that the system was corrupt beyond saving. He was the leak. Maybe. Or maybe he just broke from survivor's guilt. Either way, your father never trusted him after that. Kate processed this information. Where exactly did the ambush happen? Miller pulled out his phone, opening a mapping app. Here, grid reference 31.615, 65.715. Valley called Gormach. Locals call it the Valley of Shadows. That's where Pierce is building his compound. Then he's insane. That valley is cursed. Taliban won't even go there anymore. Kate stood to leave, but Miller caught her arm. Your father had a theory about Blackwater. Said the ambush was too perfect, too coordinated. He believed someone wanted the team dead to cover something up. Cover what up? He never found out, but he died trying. Kate returned to find James in their cottage's hidden basement, their gear already laid out with military precision. He looked up from cleaning his rifle. When do we leave? Tonight. But James, this is personal now. Pierce didn't just betray his country, he killed my father's team, maybe set up my father's death in Moscow. Then we end him. It's not that simple. She showed him the intelligence she'd gathered. Pierce has 40-plus operators in Kandahar, fortified compound modern weapons defensive positions. We can't assault it directly. So we don't. We make him come to us. Kate smiled coldly. I know exactly how. That evening, as Kate taught her last art class, she helped Emma Rodriguez finish a painting of her father returning from deployment. Mrs. Reynolds, Emma said quietly, are you going away like Mrs. Winslow? Kate knelt beside her. Just for a little while. But I'll come back. Promise, promise. But promises were dangerous things in their world, and Kate knew it. The transport to Afghanistan took 18 hours with stops in Germany and Kuwait. Kate and James traveled separately using different identities, different routes. They reconvened in Kabul at a CIA safe house that officially didn't exist. Deputy Director Cross was waiting for them via secure video link. "The Phoenix Initiative is bigger than we thought," she began without preamble. "Pierce has recruited from Vanguard's ashes, but also from half a dozen other disillusioned groups. They're planning something they call the Reckoning, which is simultaneous attacks on military bases worldwide. Make Vanguard's plan look like a firecracker. They want to trigger global military response force, America into wars, on multiple fronts, collapse the entire defense structure through overextension. When 7 days, the anniversary of the Blackwater ambush." Kate felt the pieces clicking together. "He's going to broadcast from where my father's team died. Make himself a martyr for the cause, inspire others to continue even if he falls. Can you stop him? Not with a direct assault. But Pierce has one weakness: he needs to be the hero of his own story. He needs vindication." James understood immediately. "You're going to give him what he wants. I'm going to give him Nightingale, publicly, on his terms." Cross's image flickered. "That's suicide. That's bait. While Pierce is focused on me, James and his team hit the compound's infrastructure. No power, no communications, no broadcast. And Pierce is mine." The next 5 days were preparation and infiltration. James assembled a team from Lightning and local assets, 18 operators, who could move through Afghanistan's terrain like ghosts. Kate worked alone, establishing her legend, leaving breadcrumbs for Pierce to find. She made herself visible in Kabul's intelligence community, asking questions about Blackwater, about the Valley of Shadows, about Pierce. Within 48 hours, she had a tail. Within 72, Pierce's people tried to grab her. She let them get close, then vanished, leaving behind a message: "Valley of Shadows, dawn, day 7. Just you and me, Nightingale." Pierce's response came within hours. "Accepted. Come alone, or the broadcast accelerates." The night before the confrontation, Kate and James met at a forward operating position 10 miles from Pierce's compound. Lightning team was already in position, ready to strike. "He'll have shooters on overwatch," James said, studying the terrain maps. "I'm counting on it. The more security he has visible, the more confident he'll feel." Kate marked positions on the map. "When he focuses on me, you take these 3 infrastructure points, 10 minutes maximum. And if he just shoots you on sight, he won't. Pierce needs to talk, needs to justify himself. It's why he's been broadcasting manifestos instead of just attacking." She touched James's face. "Trust me. Always." They spent their last night together planning contingencies, memorizing abort codes, synchronizing watches. But beneath the professional preparation was the unspoken understanding that tomorrow might be their last dawn. The Valley of Shadows lived up to its name. As Kate entered at first light, fog clung to the ground like battlefield ghosts. The ruins of an old Soviet outpost marked the meeting point, the same place where Blackwater had been ambushed 15 years ago. Pierce was already there, standing where her father had fought for his life. He wore tactical gear but no helmet, his scarred face proud and defiant. 6 operators flanked him, weapons ready but not aimed. "Nightingale, or should I call you Catherine? Kate works. My father called me Kate. Your father was a good man, betrayed by the system he served. Betrayed by you." Pierce's expression didn't change. "I tried to warn him about the ambush. He didn't listen. Because you were the one who set it up." "No." Real emotion cracked Pierce's composure. "I discovered it too late. Someone higher wanted Blackwater to fail, wanted us dead. I've spent 15 years trying to find out who." Kate pulled out a photograph, old weathered, recovered from her father's effects. It showed the Blackwater team, young soldiers full of purpose. Pierce stood next to Thomas Winslow, both smiling. "He kept this," she said. "Even after suspecting you, he kept this. Said you were broken, not evil." Pierce took the photo with shaking hands. He was right. I broke that night, watching them die, knowing I could have prevented it if I'd been faster, smarter, better. So you decided to burn down the world. I decided to fix it, to create something from the ashes that couldn't be corrupted, couldn't betray its warriors. He gestured at his compound. Phoenix Initiative isn't about destruction. It's about rebirth. Kate let him talk, letting him reveal his position, his philosophy, his blind spots. Through her earpiece, she heard James, "In position," awaiting signal. "You know what your problem is, Pierce." Kate stepped closer inside his security perimeter. "You think you're the hero. You think killing thousands will somehow vindicate the 10 who died here. They deserve justice. They deserve peace, and their families deserve to not have their memories tainted by your crusade." Pierce raised his weapon. "Enough. You came here to die with honor. I'll give you that much. I came here to end this." Kate triggered the device in her pocket. Every electronic system in Pierce's compound died instantly, a localized EMP pulse that she'd been carrying against her body shielded until activated. Communications vehicles, weapons, systems, all dead. Pierce pulled the trigger. Nothing. Electronic firing system fried. Kate moved before he could switch to manual backup, closing the distance in 2 strides. They collided, 2 warriors trained by the same system fighting for opposite visions of the future. Pierce was larger, stronger, but Kate was faster and had spent 3 years preparing for exactly this moment. She'd studied every fight Pierce had ever been, in every move he favored, every weakness he didn't know he had. The fight ranged across the ruins, through places where her father had bled, where Blackwater had died, where Pierce's madness had been born. His operators tried to intervene, but Lightning Team materialized from the fog, James leading them, like death incarnate. The compound burned in the distance, Pierce's grand plan collapsing as his infrastructure disappeared. No broadcast, no manifesto, no martyrdom. Pierce finally understood, standing bloodied in the ruins of his dream. "You planned this. All of it. Every second." Kate held him at gunpoint with his own backup weapon. "The message from Moscow, the breadcrumbs in Kabul, even letting you choose this place. I knew your psychology, your need for symbolic victory." "Kill me then. Make me a martyr." "No. You live. You stand trial. You face the families of everyone you've killed." She smiled coldly. "Death would be mercy. I'm offering justice." Pierce laughed bitterly. "You think you've won Phoenix was just one initiative. There are others. Hydra, Prometheus, Ragnarok. The world is changing, Nightingale. The old order is dying. Maybe, but not today, and not by your hand." The helicopters arrived. As the sun fully rose, federal agents and military police taking Pierce and his surviving operators into custody. The Phoenix Initiative died in the Valley of Shadows, where it had been born from tragedy and madness. But Pierce's words echoed in Kate's mind. Other initiatives. Other threats. The war wasn't over. It had evolved. The flight back to Pendleton took 2 days with debriefs and reports and bureaucracy. But finally, Kate stood again in her classroom, preparing for Monday's students. Emma Rodriguez had left a painting on her desk, a nightingale singing in a tree, protecting smaller birds from a circling hawk. The innocence of it, the intuitive understanding, made Kate's eyes burn with unshed tears. James found her there, pulled her into his arms. "It's over." "This part is," she showed him the intelligence cross had sent rumors of Hydra, in South America Prometheus, in Eastern Europe Ragnarok, in the Pacific. "But there's always another threat." "Not today." "No, not today. They stood together in the quiet classroom, surrounded by children's art, by hope rendered in crayon and tempera paint. Tomorrow there would be new threats, new missions, new shadows to fight. But today, they were home. Miller visited that evening, bringing his granddaughter and a bottle of whiskey. They sat on Kate's porch, watching the sun set over the Pacific. "Heard Pierce is talking," Miller said. "Naming names, revealing everything. He wants vindication. If he can't be a hero, he'll be the one who exposed the corruption." Kate sipped her whiskey. "It's still useful. We're getting intelligence on threats we didn't even know existed." "Your father would be proud." Would he? Kate thought about Thomas Winslow, about the secrets he'd kept, the wars he'd fought in shadows. "I'm not sure he'd recognize the world we're protecting." "Maybe not. But he'd recognize you. The best of him continuing the fight." Sarah Miller ran over paint on her fingers from the art project she'd been working on. "Mrs. Reynolds, look, I painted you." The painting was typical 6-year-old art stick figures and bright colors, but she'd painted Kate standing between children and dark shapes, protecting them. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Grandpa says you're a hero, like in the stories." Kate met Miller's eyes over his granddaughter's head. "Heroes in stories get happy endings. So do real ones," Miller said quietly. "They just have to fight harder for them." That night, Cross called with new intelligence. Hydra was moving something big planned for South America. The CIA wanted Nightingale and Ghost to investigate. Kate looked at James, the question unspoken between them. 6 months, he said. "We said we'd try for 6 months of normal. It's been 3 weeks. Felt longer." He pulled her close. "But some things are worth more than normal. The mission, the kids. Emma, Sarah, Tommy, all of them. They deserve a world where they can paint without fear." Kate kissed him, decision made. "We leave tomorrow night, after art class." Always after art class. They prepared in their basement checking gear, updating intelligence, becoming Nightingale and Ghost once more. But when morning came, they were Sarah and Tom Reynolds' teacher and contractor, living their cover so completely it almost felt real. Emma Rodriguez painted a butterfly that day, bright and beautiful and free. Tommy Chen drew his father coming home. Sarah Miller created a rainbow over Camp Pendleton. Kate taught them about mixing colors, about perspective, about seeing beauty in the world. She didn't teach them about the shadows. She fought the nightmares, she prevented the darkness she held at bay. That was her gift to them. Ignorance of evil, freedom to be children, space to grow without fear. When the last child left, Kate locked her classroom and walked to where James waited in their nondescript car. Their gear was already loaded, their legend established, their target identified. "Ready?" he asked. "Always." They drove toward the transport that would take them to South America, to Hydra, to the next shadow war. Behind them, Camp Pendleton settled into evening routines, families gathering for dinner, children doing homework, Marines preparing for morning PT. Normal life continuing because abnormal people stood guard in the darkness. The wooden Nightingale sat on Kate's desk in the locked classroom, a reminder and a promise. She would return. She always returned. The children needed their teacher, and she needed them, needed their innocence to balance her darkness, their hope to justify her wars. 6 months later, Kate did return, slipping back into Sarah Reynolds, like putting on comfortable clothes. Hydra was dismantled, its leaders imprisoned or dead. Prometheus had folded without leadership. Ragnarok was still out there, but weakened, watched, contained for now. She stood at her classroom door on a Monday morning, greeting returning students, meeting new ones. Emma Rodriguez had grown taller, her paintings more sophisticated. Tommy Chen had learned to write and proudly showed her his name. Sarah Miller ran to hug her, crying, "Mrs. Reynolds, you came back. I promised, didn't I?" Admiral Thompson stopped by that afternoon, older, now grayer, but still sharp. "Heard you had an interesting 6 months." "Travel broadened my perspective." "I'm sure. Also heard several terrorist organizations spontaneously collapsed." "Lucky coincidence." He smiled. "Indeed. By the way, there's a new intelligence position opening up. Base coordinator for special activities. Purely administrative, of course. Perfect for someone who wanted to stay close to home while maintaining flexibility." Kate understood. Official cover for unofficial operations. A way to be both Sarah Reynolds and Nightingale without the constant deception. "James, similar position in base security. You'd work together officially and otherwise." She looked at her students' paintings covering the walls, at her life's two halves finally finding balance. "We'll take it." That evening, she and James stood on the beach where it had all began, where she'd saved Dixon and started the chain of events that exposed Vanguard, defeated Phoenix, and led them to this moment. "Think it's over?" James asked. "Evil never, but Vanguard Phoenix that specific threat." "Yes." "And us? Can we really do this, be teachers and warriors, parents and protectors?" Kate touched her stomach, where new life grew a secret she'd discovered in South America, confirmed that morning. "We'll have to. Someone needs to stand watch. Someone needs to teach the next generation. And someone needs to raise our child in a world worth inheriting." James's eyes widened, his hand covering hers. "You're 3 months, due in spring." He kissed her deeply, purely, the warrior becoming a father in that instant. "Boy or girl, does it matter? Not even slightly." They walked back toward their cottage, their home, their future. Behind them, the sun set over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of hope. Ahead, their life stretched out, complicated, dangerous, but theirs. In her pocket, the wooden nightingale seemed to pulse with warmth, her father's legacy now becoming her child's inheritance. The wars in shadow would continue, but so would the teaching, the protecting, the quiet heroism of standing between innocence and evil. Kate Winslow had died in Moscow. Catherine Winslow had died in Hawaii. But Sarah Reynolds lived, taught, loved, and fought. The nightingale sang in daylight, now no longer hiding, no longer alone. And somewhere in the shadows, evil reconsidered its plans, knowing that Nightingale and Ghost stood watch that their children would inherit not just their skills, but their purpose, that the war between light and darkness would continue through generations. But for tonight, for this moment, there was peace. Kate painted while James cooked dinner. They talked about baby names, about nursery colors, about the ordinary miracles of a life hard-won from darkness. The ghosts had found their home, and they would defend it forever. In the morning, there would be children to teach art, to create beauty, to nurture. And if the shadows grew too dark, if evil rose again, Nightingale would sing, Ghost would strike, and the innocent would never know how close they'd come to nightmare. That was the real victory, not the enemies defeated or the plots foiled, but the normal lives continuing undisturbed, the children painting rainbows while warriors held back the storm. Kate touched the window, looking out at Camp Pendleton, sleeping peacefully. "Thank you," she whispered to her father's ghost, to the wooden nightingale, to the shadows that had shaped her. Then she turned back to her life, her love, her future, leaving the past where it belonged, honored, but not haunting, remembered, but not ruling. The war was over. The watch had begun. And Sarah Reynolds, teacher, and protector mother-to-be, and warrior in waiting, was finally, truly home.